What do you spend your grubby hobby dollars on? Buttload of new paints? That's a pretty good answer. Dozens of brushes and silly tools? Sure. More models than you'll ever be able to paint in your lifetime? Yeah, me too. But how much have you focused on the most constant, impactful product for our entire hobby? Yep, I'm talking about light. God damn it, that's bright. I don't know about you, but I enjoy testing and trying out different tools in our miniature hobby. And as much as we talk about things like paint brands and paint brushes and all sorts of different tools, one thing I've not really seen is someone investigate all the different options in lighting. Because believe it or not, the lighting that you have in your painting area has a massive influence on your hobby, and it might be the single most important tool that you purchase for miniature painting. So today I've gathered up what I consider to be 5 of the best lighting solutions for miniature painting, and we can figure out which one is best overall and which pros and cons each have, so you might find the right light just for your need. Now before we jump into those 5, I'll be upfront and honest with you all and let you know that I'm not using any of those 5 or any other normal hobby light in any of the painting footage you see on this channel. I use a high-end film and photography light, and just because this thing is fancier and more expensive does not actually mean it's a better hobby painting light. In fact, it oftentimes is not worth it. It takes up so much space. It's not portable at all. It needs to be bolted into the rafters in my ceiling and has to be hung from a steel pipe. So yeah, bigger and more expensive isn't always better. All right, our first light is a simple multi-joint task lamp. I've got 2 of them here. These are actually the first miniature painting lights I ever bought when I started out years ago, and these exact same versions are still available today on Amazon. They're about 20 bucks a piece. The nice thing about these lights is that you can put in whatever kind of light bulb you want. And this big giant bulb that's in here came in a 2-pack, which I purchased to test out for today's video. I've heard of multiple people really liking this specific light for miniature painting. Now, I recommend strongly that you would get a pair of these. Now, the reason you want 2 of these bulbs is because you want to have a nice array of light that's coming across your model. All right, we're gonna turn these suckers on. And yeah, as I expected, these are 3,400 lumens per bulb, which is extremely bright and probably going to give you a headache if you look directly at them. Now you have a couple of options in dealing with something that's this bright. First of all, you can work with diffusion, and that's how you cast a nice smooth, even light over an area. And when it's not diffused like this, it's going to be super harsh, and it's actually going to be more strain on your eyes over the course of a painting session. Now these bulbs are so bright that I feel like they're kind of blowing out the color itself on the model. It's not quite as vibrant as I really feel it is under my normal painting lights. In terms of color, these are a nice, cool 5,000 lumens, which is the color temperature I prefer to paint on. The lower that number goes, down to 3,000 or so, the more it approaches a warm orange, almost sunlight. In my opinion, you kind of have to work extra in order to make this kind of a lighting setup actually all that valuable. And you'd think it would save you a bunch of money, when in fact, each of these lights is 20 bucks a piece, and the 2-pack of these light bulbs is about the same price. So I think all said and done, this setup is between 60 and 70 bucks, which isn't super cheap and isn't actually that much cheaper than any other option we're going to show today. One last thing to discuss about these bulbs is that they have a CRI of 80. CRI stands for Color Rendering Index. That means how close does it actually depict colors to your eye from the light it produces. By being CRI 80, they give us that balance of being a quality light, but not a break the bank light. Oh, and before I forget, all of the lights that we're talking about today will have links down the video description below should you want to do more investigation of your own or maybe pick one up. Those are affiliate links, so you'll actually give the channel some support by purchasing there if you decide you need a new light. Do you crave power? Do you have potential? Well, then today's sponsor, Potential Power Nutrition, has something for you. Real talk, even if you're eating healthy and exercising every single day, it's incredibly difficult to get all the vitamins and minerals we need to make sure that we have energy all day, we feel good and healthy, we get plenty of sleep, and we have the focus and concentration we need to make it through each day. And this isn't a generic ad spot. I've been taking the Breakfast Blend chocolate shake for the last 3+ months now. And not only have I seen all the changes I mentioned above, but I've also lost weight and it's helped regulate my blood sugars. Why I think this is a great product is no matter what your situation, it's got your back. Are you just on the go and you need a quick meal and have all your vitamins and minerals covered for the whole day? Well, it can do that. Want to not worry about your fruits and veggies and get 5 servings of each in just one shake? Well, it does that too. Want a great tasting meal replacement that'll shed some pounds and keep you full until your next meal? You got it right. It does that too. Maybe you want a high quality pre-workout that's used by Olympic and Division I collegiate athletes because it's transparent about what's in it, because they spend their money on the highest quality ingredients instead of marketing. I think you get the idea. Also, there's painters and gamers in the company. Check out Brandon's Tau color scheme based on the PPN logo colors. Professionals with decades of experience using the highest quality ingredients to get you total metabolic support. And if you use the coupon code NINJON20 at checkout, you get 20% off and free shipping. So check out that link below. The next light I want to talk about is the OttLite. Now, that may be a brand that you've heard of before because they're kind of well known in the hobby sphere. I've had this one here since not long after I started miniature painting, and I used it in my airbrush station down in my basement when it was just set up on a card table in our utility room. But because the technology has probably come a ways there, I wanted to just buy a new one and see what that would do compared to the other lights on the market today. This one is called the Entice series LED desk lamp, and it seemed like a good place for us to go. The first thing you'll notice when you take it out of the box is how incredibly tiny this thing is, which means this is the ideal shape and size of a light that you would take with you traveling, whether it's going to a friend's house to just hang out or go to the game store and paint, or maybe go to conventions. You could throw this in a backpack or in a suitcase and it takes up next to no space. So immediately I'm impressed. Now that doesn't mean that the quality of the light is great, but we're off to a good start. Is that it? I guess that's it. Maybe my eyes are just still adjusting for how bright those last lights were, but this thing seems pretty wimpy by comparison. Now this thing does only have 424 lumens compared to the 3,400 per bulb on the other guys. Yeah, those things are probably going to be the brightest thing we see today, but this thing really does seem to pale in comparison. Now it does get kind of low if you like. Okay, this definitely does seem better. It seems like I have a respectable amount of light to paint from. It's not super bright, not as bright as I'd actually prefer it being, and I have the light only about 4 to 5 inches away from the model, but I could still very easily paint this way. It also has a nice long LED strip that's running here, so we don't have the issue of a single light source. And it is really nice and diffused, so I don't have any shadows being cast or any extra shining on the model itself, so that's really nice. Now this thing can go to 3 different paint light modes, which is kind of cool, if for no other reason than for us to see the difference between 2700K, 3500K, and 5000. Now we see at this 5000 we get a nice neutral cool color of our light, so we don't have any influences from oranges or blues. Another nice aspect about this light is that it has a 95 plus CRI rating, which is noticeably higher than our last bulbs. So yeah, this little booger is pretty cool. Now, I don't know if this thing quite cuts it in terms of power and actual output, but if you have a mobile painting station at home, if you have to pick up and go from a kitchen table or somewhere and paint and then put it all away later, or you paint on the go a lot, this thing is pretty stinking good. The price that I paid for this thing on Amazon was $70, which is basically the same price as the 2 bulbs and 2 lamps for other setup. So yeah, same amount of money, widely different kind of a product. The next light on the docket is the NeatFi Elite HD XL task light. The longest name of any of the lights today. It feels like they're really just trying real hard. All right, this one is certainly heavier and it feels like it's got some oomph to it. Although I will say the actual quality of the construction of this thing feels a little bit cheapy. The plastic isn't terrible, but it just kind of feels a little bit like cheapy plastic. Now this head can rotate and all this stuff can move around like this, which is pretty nice to have that flexibility. Now this thing is $110, so it's not cheap, but it claims that it has 90 individual LEDs in here. It seems pretty easy to make it brighter and brighter. Now it does say that this is running between 6,000 and 7,000 K, which is really cool, and I can kind of tell it. Let's see if we can tell it all in the miniatures. You can't adjust that color temperature. You can dim it to make it brighter or softer. And overall, the 1,360 lumens it can output at its brightest setting is quite bright without blowing your eyes out by staring into the sun bright. I gotta say, I am a fan of this big, long strip of LEDs, and the quality seems fairly good. This thing's a little bit too cool in color for my taste, but that could be personal preference. You may find it just fine. Overall, I think this is a really nice, well-rounded purchase. Although the $110 price tag isn't cheap, I do think so far it's my favorite of the three. I don't know what to do with these in between switching lights, so this is our next light. It looks kind of like a miniature version of a floor lamp, and this is the reliable UberLight Flex, and you can see where it gets the Flex name. It has a cool little goosenecky action thing, so you can push your light wherever you want, and even the head where the light comes from can rotate 270 degrees, almost all the way around. Now the version of this light that I got is the one with the stand, but it also comes with a version with a clamp for a table. So if you're in a situation where you don't have an area to clamp on a table, something like this is a good option. It says the three options for color temperature are 2700, 4000, and 6000. So I guess you can kind of determine, because it has both 4 and 6, which you like better. There's the 4, there's the 6. I think the 4 shows a little bit more of the pink out in reds. Now this thing boosts out 600 lumens, which is about half of the NeatFi one we just tested, and it's about half the width of the light. Now one thing you could do is you could buy 2 of these and kind of do the one on each side method, and you could even snake them up like over your shoulder a little bit so they were kind of positioned to where you'd want the light to be coming right around your eye level. If you had 2 of them, I wish I had 2 so I could test this right now. I think that double amount of light output and giving the angle of the light coming from your eye angle would be ideal for painting. So I think the flexibility of the gooseneck is really cool. Now the price on this light is $89 for the version with the stand that you see here, and that stand is very heavy. There's not any concern of anything is going to be tipped over. The version that uses the clamp is noticeably cheaper. It's only $59. For the average hobbyist, it should be plenty of light for your needs. Now the CRI being about 80 means it's on the lower end, which means some of the colors, specifically colors like reds and oranges and yellows and flesh tones, might not be extremely accurate. Last but certainly not least, we have the RedGrass Games R9 Task Light for creative people. Yes, that's actually the name, for creative people. If you're not creative, get the hell out. This lamp is so new, it's not even out yet, but I got a hold of RedGrass Games and asked if they would send me one because I was making this video comparing lights, and they were nice enough to do so. This is awkward for me to talk while I'm trying to set this thing up. I'm not doing a very good job. I have more things I want to talk about this lamp, but this little clamp that it comes with is so much higher quality and nicer than all the other ones, I kind of got distracted for a moment. So if you'll allow me to continue. Now this thing is really sleek and seems to be the nicest quality, sturdiest. Doesn't seem like there's cheap plastic anywhere. This seems to be some kind of aluminum really seems interesting, especially the shape of the light. It is almost shaped like a tuning fork with two long LED strips, and these are movable however you want. I asked why, because I'm not quite certain. But they said is that it gives you a little bit more flexibility in making sure that you are catching the right angles of your painting to make sure you don't hit any areas of shadow. Do I think that this is a game-changing feature in painting light technology? No, but it doesn't really make anything less useful. In fact, there is one aspect of it that kind of made me really excited. And when I talked to them about it, they hadn't even considered it. That feature, which was one of the features that excited me most about this light, has to do with the weird construction of the two lights with a gap in between them. And the thing that I found myself really enjoying was actually taking the light and bringing it nice and low so I actually could paint by looking directly through that gap between the two lights and seeing the model perfectly lit in all sides through the light and just painting that way. And I didn't have any issue doing so. This actually is a wide enough gap that I can see the model perfectly clear and bright and see all those little tiny details, the little dottings of the eyes or the little edge highlights that I needed to pull off. It seemed really easy by just looking through those two lights. So I said it's only in one color temperature, but I think it's the ideal color temperature. It is dimmable if you wanted it to go lighter, but at max lightness, it is 1,800 lumens. This thing is super freaking bright. But the most impressive thing about this light, at least on paper, is the fact that it boasts a 98 plus CRI rating. Also, they gave me a little bit more details about the science of CRI, which I then looked into myself and stated that the CRI index is kind of an antiquated way for us to test the quality of a light. You see, a standard CRI analyzes only 8 colors out of a possible 15 available for testing. And those 8 that determine a light's CRI rating excludes key colors like reds, yellows, and skin tones, which is a pretty big deal, seeing as most of the models we paint have skin of some kind, and trying to figure out how vibrant your reds or yellows are is important. And if your light is not cooperating with you, it can seem like painting is even more difficult than it has to be. So the big thing that RedGrass is marketing about this light is that not only does it get a CRI rating of 98 over the standard 8 colors, it also gets a over 97 CRI rating over all 15 colors. Now let me preface what I'm about to say by stating that I have no affiliation with RedGrass Games. I don't make a cent if they sell any of these things on Kickstarter. But what I want to really determine is if this thing is that much better than the other lights I've used over the years and against the 4 others that I've tested today. In short, yes, but the answer isn't quite so simple. Do I think it's the highest quality of the 5? 100%. Absolutely. Do I think it gives all the things that I really want out of a light? The correct color temperature, the ability to be really flexible, high quality design, a nice long width of light that doesn't give any shadows across the model, really high color rendering index. It does all of those things. But the question is the price. I don't know exactly what it's going to cost on the Kickstarter, but I was told by RedGrass Games that it's in the realm of $200. Now, $200 can be a lot of money for a light, right? So if I was going to pay 70 or 80 bucks for an OttLite or maybe the UberLight, well, up to 200 is a pretty big jump. If the $100 range really is your cap, that NeatFi light probably is the way to go. Let's say you paint on the go a lot. Let's say you paint at the game store a lot. Let's say you go to conventions a lot. All those things factor in which light is best for you. Do I think that this RedGrass Games light is the best light on the market? It's the best light I've tested, but then again, it's also the most expensive light that I've tested. It's not me to say where you spend your hobby dollars. If you do value getting a light though, I think any of the options today are great. It all depends on what you feel suits your lifestyle best or what you think will grow with you as a painter over the years as opposed to what will just help you get by today. And I'm not saying if you've got a standard ass desk lamp and you just use it and you're happy and your models look good to throw that thing away and spend $100 or more on a new light. But when it comes down to where we want to allocate our hobby bucks, sometimes it's best to do it on the more boring things like a light than it is on the cool things like a bunch more Terminators or a tank or the next speed paint knockoff. Whatever. You do you. I wanted to plug in all 5 of these lights at the same time, but I also have my 2 massive studio lights on, and I'm pretty sure I would just blow the breaker if I did so. So you're just going to have to pretend that they're all on for this cool final outro of the video. I'm going to see you again back here next week, and we're going to be done talking about lights. We're going to have something else really cool to talk about in miniature painting. So until then, make sure you find time in your day to slay the gray. Right here is the most goddamn patriotic skeleton you'll ever see. He loves America so much, almost makes him cry. If he still had tear ducts, he would totally cry and drink a Coors Light while watching the Eagle soar into the future, the Blue Angels, football stadiums, macaroni and cheese. To get all the vitamins and minerals.